Sharanya was a successful media professional. In her younger days, she had learned to play the veena and had acquired a fair degree of proficiency. She switched to Carnatic vocal after marriage and the arrival of her 2 children, because lugging the veena everywhere and finding the time to practice with children hovering in the background was proving to be a huge challenge. She didn't perform in public, but used to render songs at small meetings, like an invocation here and a bhajan there, and so on. She was a reasonably good singer, except for some nervousness while foraying into the upper octave. And so she was on the lookout for a voice coach. Shortly thereafter, she came across an ad in the papers. 1-on-1, 2-week intensive workshop, guaranteed to teach you how to use your voice and make it your most powerful asset. She quickly called the number on the ad and spoke to the young man and set up a time to meet. What was most reassuring was discovering that he was also known to the family. At the very first meeting, he asked her to sing a few lines of a song and the Arohanam and Avrohanam. In his opinion, there wasn't any major problem, just a few voice projection techniques and breathing exercises, and she should be sorted. He handed out the workshop notes, and they settled on the dates and timings for the rest of the workshop. The next day, she reported like a good and dutiful student. The coach taught her the voice projection techniques and breathing exercises. It was really nothing new. It was all stuff that she had learnt earlier in other workshops, but hadn't practiced hard enough and had forgotten all about. Since she had a singing assignment coming up, she asked if she could sing the song for the coach and if he could feedback. I've got another class in the next half an hour, so why don't we do this over the phone, he suggested. That sounded good to her. So they decided on the time for her to call later that night, and she came on the line at the appointed hour and rendered the song. And then the coach began to feedback. From the way he spoke, it was clear that he was a little high, and he had apparently also been smoking, for it showed in his voice. "You're hitting all the right notes," he said. "The trick is to just use the diaphragm. If you sing from deep down, your voice will acquire that much more body and depth. Remind me to show you how in class tomorrow," he said. Happy with the positive feedback, she reported the next day, looking forward to what the coach had to say. This time, the class was in the terrace room, and it seemed as if there was nobody else in the house. The coach also had what looked like a doctor's examination couch in that terrace room. "Lie down on this," he said. "This?" she said, somewhat taken aback. "Yes," he said, without batting an eyelid. She thought it would be silly not to do as he was asking her to, and so she climbed on to the couch and said, "What is this young chap going to do? He's a kid after all." Once she lay down on the couch, the coach spread out his palm and began to run his fingers in her abdominal area under the pretext of showing her where her diaphragm was and from where the voice should emanate. She felt very vulnerable in this position. She lying down, this young man touching her, and both of them being all alone in that house. She tried to distract him and engage him in a conversation and spoke to him about voice projection and how she should sing and things like that. She just waited to get a word in between and got up, straightened her hair, and bolted down the staircase after taking leave of the coach. He followed her right down and then said, "The next time you want to practice a song, we can do it in the car when I'm traveling from point A to point B," and shut the door. She nodded mechanically. There were a few more classes to go for the workshop to end. To hell with it, she thought. Voice or no voice, there was no going back to this creep. There was no knowing what he would do next. It seemed too much of a risk to take.